Revealed, Millionaire discovers shocking bruises on employee, transforms life in unexpected way. Ryan Caldwell, at 38, was living the dream, or so it seemed. A self-made millionaire thriving in San Francisco's tech boom, his groundbreaking software startup epitomized success. But amid clinking coffee cups and ringing cell phones, a deep unease clawed at him. He often found himself questioning not his business acumen but his very identity, molded by a childhood where loyalty meant sacrificing ambition. Today, in the open office space glowing with dubious success, that disquiet settled heavily on his shoulders. It was a typical bustling Thursday afternoon, and Ryan, determined to refine his latest project, decided to take a stroll through the office. As he greeted employees, an unusual sight stopped him in his tracks. There sat Jenny, his most dedicated employee, her usual enthusiasm replaced by a solemn quiet. Her head hung low before her computer screen, fingers tense over the keyboard. But it wasn't just her demeanor, it was the alarming flash of bruises that caught his eye, a violet landscape stark against her pale skin. An electric jolt of fear coursed through him. Surely, he was misreading this, a simple accident, right? Yet, the unease gnawed at his gut, emotions swirling chaotically. Days passed, and Ryan's curiosity morphed into a consuming obsession. Witnessing her struggle was unbearable. She was a brilliant mind drowning in something darker. The heaviness of a hidden truth loomed over him. An offhand comment revealed the grim circumstances surrounding her life: a troubled relationship at home, hospital bills for her ailing father, and a mother whose reliance on her pushed Jenny to the edge. Each piece of her story unearthed layers of his childhood, of familial duty smothering the spark of ambition he tirelessly crafted into his very being. Yet, here lay a dilemma. Ryan's instincts screamed to intervene, to reach out and help, while his corporate ethos battled against the specter of entitlement and class disparity. He hesitated, the weight of his privilege pressing down on a choice that seemed unfathomably complex. Would she perceive his concern as empathy or condescension? A tangled web formed between wanting to protect her and respecting her autonomy, each thought clawing at him, deeper than any coding problem he'd ever faced. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as there seemed a path forward, a stunning connection emerged between their pasts, echoes of family history that aligned in the most unexpected way, intertwining their lives in the most intimate of circumstances. The revelation roared to life, amplifying the complex emotions swirling between them. Ryan felt both empowered and trapped, a prisoner to the legacy of their shared struggles. Standing on a precipice, he recognized the haunting nature of their histories, with scars that surpassed the physical. The bruises she wore echoed his own internal wounds, silent reminders of personal battles against societal demands. As uncertainty thickened the air, he offered his support, his heart running wild with the gravitational pull of her pain. But Jenny was paralyzed, the weight of her fears holding her in check. Before the momentum could shift into meaningful connection, a shocking event threatened to fracture everything. Ryan felt as if the ground beneath him had crumbled, leaving him grasping for a decision that could reshape their lives forever. The vivid memory of her pain lingered as he stood at the edge of this stark reality, knowing their journey had only just begun. Ryan could hardly focus on work in the days that followed, the image of Jenny's bruises haunting him like a specter in the back of his mind. Each chair creak and keyboard tap felt amplified, drowning out his concentration and accentuating the looming pain he sensed around him. As he stared at his computer screen, lines of code blurred together, a cacophony of errors that mirrored the confusion in his heart that he could no longer ignore the plight of someone who had invested so much of herself into his company. With every moment that passed, his hesitation transformed into a gnawing urgency. Did he truly understand the nature of his success if it came at the expense of others' suffering? He wrestled with the thought that perhaps his wealth and status could facilitate change, not just for him, but for those like Jenny who were trapped in a cycle of despair. As Ryan sat in the break room, swirling his coffee absent-mindedly, a strategic plan began to form in his mind. He envisioned establishing a support system within his company, one that could include mental health resources, financial advice for employees battling personal crises, and a culture that prioritized empathy over profits. The notion inspired him, and perhaps, for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope that his success could be meaningful beyond himself. But each step advanced with an inner conflict. Would it come off as a grand gesture of privilege? Or was it a necessary evolution for his own moral standing? The atmosphere in the office shifted subtly as the days dragged on. Employees were restless, overwhelmed by the pressure of rising expectations. Paranoia crept in, a silent tension that often drowned out the clinking cups and ringing phones. Ryan contemplated how to foster a space that nurtured not just productivity but also humanity. His instincts clashed against corporate culture. He had to tread carefully, balancing between showing genuine concern and the fear of undermining agency. Then, one fateful afternoon, he noticed that Jenny had taken to sitting in a corner of the office during lunch hours, her lunch untouched as she stared blankly at her phone. A tide of emotions coursed through him. It was time to act. He approached her with a blend of resolve and vulnerability, his heart thudding painfully in his chest. "Jenny, can we talk?" he asked, gauging the shifts in her expression. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. Words seemed stuck in her throat, but eventually, she nodded. They found a quiet conference room, a stark contrast to the buzz of the open office. Ryan took a breath, heart racing, and dove right in. "I've noticed you haven't been yourself lately. I want to help, but I need you to meet me halfway. Is there anything I can do?" Moments stretched into uncomfortable silence as he observed her wariness. The walls seemed to close in. The struggle on her face mirrored his own internal battle. Trust needed to bridge the gap, but could he facilitate that connection without undermining her autonomy? Jenny's response would be a pivotal moment, an opportunity for both of them to confront their pasts and perhaps, transcend them. "How could you possibly help?" Her words pierced the air like ice, laden with skepticism. Ryan's heart sank, but he sensed something deeper, a flicker of defiance. "By listening, by creating a space that fosters growth for all of us. If you share with me what needs to change, we can figure it out together." As her defenses gradually lowered, Ryan felt an energy swell. A powerful realization emerged. This was not about him offering charity, it was about building a partnership that acknowledged their shared struggles. The stakes suddenly felt insurmountable, that he knew this conversation was merely the beginning. In the silence that followed, the tension crackled as they looked at each other, the weight of unspoken fears and desires heavy in the air. Together, they had the potential to confront the tangled mess of family obligations and societal pressures that both had wrestled with, but before he could receive a response, a loud knock interrupted their moment. The door swung open, and Ryan's assistant stepped in, a frantic urgency evident in her eyes. "Ryan, we have a crisis brewing with an investor. We need to address this immediately." His heart sank as urgency pierced the quiet reverie. But as he glanced at Jenny, he saw the door to transformation open just a crack, leaving him teetering on the edge of a significant decision. Confronting the corporate world's indifference with personal authenticity, or diving into the impending financial crisis, what path would he choose? As he stepped back into the fray, the choice hung in the balance, and the consequences of his next move reverberated through both of their lives. The office was a whirlwind of chaos as Ryan returned to his desk, the entanglement of investor demands and employee well-being swirling in his thoughts. Each notification dinging on his phone felt like a stitch pulling against the fabric of his intentions. He had just made a breakthrough with Jenny, but the prospect of immediate financial repercussions clouded his clarity. Summoning all his resolve, he opened the urgent email from the investor. Words flooded his mind: expectations, pressure, the survival of the business he had poured his life into. The disconnect between this endless ambition and the authentic human connection he sought clawed at him. Could he risk everything he had built, his reputation, his stability, for a cause that felt right? Yet as the hours inched by, the tension accumulating among his team seeped into his bones. Meetings spun in circles, discussions of profits overshadowed any mention of the growing unease lingering underneath the surface. Whispers turned into glares. It was as if the office itself was reflecting his internal battle, bright fluorescent lights glaring down on them, illuminating their anxieties. That in an impulsive moment, Ryan stood up, commanding silence among his colleagues. I want to try something new. We're going to have a sit-down, a conversation not just about numbers, but about us. What we need, what we want going forward. The startled faces surrounded him. As he spoke, he questioned, was this an act of bravery or desperation? Once the hushed murmurings faded, he led them into a spacious, quieter room. Ryan was met with a sea of lingering apprehension, but he pressed on. I know it's a challenging time for this company. We're under pressure, and I don't want that to overshadow who we are. Please, let us talk openly. Their response was a mix of resigned sighs and hesitant nods. Ryan opened up from the heart, sharing his unease about the changing culture as well as the potential plan to foster greater support within the company. He felt the air shift as he nearly laid bare his vulnerabilities, exposing a situation that mirrored Jenny's in its own way. Listening attentively, he witnessed a transformation. Employees began to share their struggles, analogous to his and Jenny's burdens he had previously overlooked. The raw honesty was revealing, exposing fissures in an otherwise pristine corporate facade. It sang a discordant tune, harmonizing with the emotional chords that Ryan had kept muted for so long. As the discussions warmed, hope flickered through the room. Ryan felt invigorated. These were his people, and their voices mattered deeply. His vision for a nurturing work environment, one that encompassed their struggles and strengths, was perhaps more feasible than he had thought. Capping the discussion, he put forth an idea: what if we compiled a task force to tackle these issues together? With real actions and solutions tailored to our needs. There was something electric about the collective nods around the room, an inkling of empowerment brewing. It was a significant departure from the mere metrics that had previously defined success. The shift wasn't just beneficial for Jenny, but for all of them. Just as in the conference room with Jenny, Ryan felt emerging strength in the unity of their shared thoughts and aspirations. When it was all over, each person dispersed with a renewed sense of purpose. Yet, as Ryan returned to his desk, a gnawing doubt lingered. Was this enough? The guardrails of corporate expectations still loomed large. What if the investors responded poorly to this newfound rapport and empathy initiative? Determination surged through him. He wouldn't allow the impending financial crisis to dismantle their progress. So, he had a decision to make. Would he confront the investor directly with the company's evolving vision, risking their investment, or play it safe, shutting down progress in the name of stability? As he mulled over his choices, his phone buzzed again, revealing a message from Jenny. Can we talk? It was a simple request, but deep panic gnawed at him. This could either fortify his efforts or unravel his intentions, revealing the delicate tapestry of both their lives and defining the future of his company. The magnitude of their intersection loomed, but would it lead to liberation or destruction? Ryan's heart raced as he stared at the screen, Jenny's message lingering like an unresolved note in a symphony. Each instinct screamed that this conversation would be pivotal. Absence and presence intertwined in his mind. Her struggles had mirrored his quest for authenticity, and now he sensed their paths were leading toward an inevitable crossroads. Before responding, he meticulously prepared himself, aware that the emotional stakes were just as high as the professional ones. What if this talk could shift the balance of his focus, redirecting his energies to a unity that transcended just profit? In the confines of his office, Ryan pondered, could he again lay bare his vulnerabilities, this time not for his employees, but for Jenny? He finally typed a hesitant reply, agreeing to meet. Each word hesitated, cautiously balancing his intentions with the urgency of the moment. Now he had to execute a strategy that would not only protect his professional aspirations but strengthen the connection that was blossoming with her. The chosen cafe was worlds away from the sterile hum of his office. Outside, the air was taut with the promise of autumn, while inside, the ambient chatter pulsated comfortably. Ryan ordered a coffee, the warmth of the mug grounding him, anchoring his swirling thoughts. When Jenny arrived, a cascade of gray clouds passed through her eyes, signaling a distant storm. He felt inexplicably drawn to protect her, ready to shield her from the world's judgments. "Thanks for coming," he greeted, doing his best to appear confident despite the vulnerability swirling within him. Each encounter amplified a creeping sense of tension. Her struggle was now deeply intertwined with his sense of self. As they settled into conversation, Ryan felt the invisible threads of their lives interweaving. Jenny opened up, her voice thick with the weight of expectation. I've been feeling lost," she confessed, the words tumbling from her lips. "Like I'm disappearing in a world that only values profit over people." His stomach twisted in empathy. "I understand. I've been feeling the same about the company." He let his thoughts flow freely, revealing how he struggled balancing the drive for success with the need for human connection. "In trying to survive, I fear we're losing touch with what makes us human." As they spoke, he witnessed something extraordinary. The layers of guarding defenses shed away, exposing vulnerabilities beneath. Their bond deepened, not merely through shared struggles but through understanding the profound weight of expectations they both carried. Ryan's auditory memories echoed through the cafe. "What if we compiled a task force?" His words from the meeting with his team resonated, echoing what he could also offer to Jenny. Caught between their mutual anxieties, he envisioned creating a space within his company where each employee could feel validated, where conversations reflected heartbeats, not just numbers. He began to formulate an idea, combining her compassionate nature and his ambition to evolve the workplace culture. "Jenny," he ventured cautiously, "what if we partnered? I want the company to reflect values that you and I share: honesty, support, connection. Imagine how transformative that could be at work." Her eyes widened. For a fleeting moment, worry turned into aspiration, but then the external pressures clouded over her enthusiasm. "But that doesn't change the realities of investor expectations. How do we bridge that gap?" Ryan paused, grappling with the harsh undercurrent of her words. The investor's grip threatened to choke both their dreams and ideals. Realization coursed through him: he could not navigate this path alone. Inwardly, he recognized that their intersection was fraught with complexity, both professionally and personally. "Let us find a way together," he asserted, a resolve taking shape. "Our journey could define more than just our paths, it could inspire real change." As their dialogue deepened, Ryan felt embers of hope igniting, yet a troubling realization cut through: he had yet to confront the investors. And time was running out. The moment of truth loomed on the horizon, and with it came an urgency to transform their shared vision into a reality. Would he have the courage to challenge the investors and risk it all for this burgeoning connection and subsequently, a revolution within his company? The answer hung palpably in the atmosphere, the whisper of the unknown, a decision that could shift both their worlds forever. The cafe buzzed around them, yet Ryan felt as if they had entered a silent bubble, where reality's harsh edges softened. He watched Jenny, her expression flickering as she absorbed his words. In that moment, he understood that their connection was no longer merely a thread in the tapestry of his life, it was a backbone supporting the weight of his continuously shifting ambitions. "Change," he repeated under his breath, allowing the idea to play in his mind. The word carried a certain charge, reverberating with the possibility of something greater. Was it possible to instigate real transformation amid an unforgiving business landscape? In that moment, a spark ignited his resolve. "Let us think big," he urged, enthusiasm creeping into his voice. "What if we presented a pilot program to the investors? It could focus on employee well-being, mental health, community bonding, all under the guise of productivity enhancement." He leaned forward, excitement coursing through him. A robust, engaged workforce is more valuable than numbers on a spreadsheet. Jenny's brow furrowed, skepticism threading through her features. "How do we ensure that it's not just a gimmick?" She crossed her arms, a defensive posture that revealed her fears. "What happens if they see it as fluff? We'll lose our credibility." Her doubt resonated with Ryan, who felt the gnarled roots of anxiety tangled through their ambition. But this wasn't merely about appeasing an investor's whims, it was about finding a path for himself, a validation of his own worth beyond the confines of spreadsheets and quarterly reports. "We start with sincerity," he declared, his voice infused with a conviction he hardly recognized. "If we can't embody it authentically, then we don't deserve to present it at all." Jenny nodded slowly, the flicker of understanding illuminating her eyes. "If we're truly going to approach them, we need to solidify our proposal with data and testimonials. We should gather experiences from our teams before we present anything." He could sense the shift. Her enthusiasm mingled with practicality formed a powerful combination. No longer was he merely inviting her to follow him into uncharted waters, they were navigating together, drafting their course toward a shared vision. As they continued plotting, Ryan's mind flashed back to boardroom meetings, the cold steel of the conference table, the unwavering gaze of investors dissecting every proposal. Would they be met with open minds or hardened skepticism? A sense of urgency began to creep in, a daunting reminder that time was no longer a luxury but a pressing thief on their dreams. The sun dipped lower outside, casting elongated shadows on the cafe floor. He glanced at Jenny, her expression belonged to someone yet unfamiliar with the stakes they were placing on the table. Their lives were now intertwined by something deeper than friendship. It was a collective responsibility, one that weighed heavier than mere partnership. "Jenny," he said, drawing her attention back. "We need to build a team, people who resonate with the vision. Are you with me on this?" A faint smile pulled at the corners of her lips, yet uncertainty lingered in her stance. "It's a big risk, Ryan. We could be standing on the precipice of change or walking into the jaws of inevitable failure." Outside, the evening air swirled with a brisk hint of winter, mirroring the shift in their atmosphere. The stakes were indeed high, and as they sat in a cramped booth, Ryan felt the full weight of that truth gnawing at him. There was no escaping the looming confrontation with the investors. "Let us take it step by step," he suggested, absorbing her hesitation. "We draft our proposal, gather data, then decide how to approach them. But understand this, I won't back down from fighting for what we believe in." As they began brainstorming, a knot of fear mixed with exhilaration swirled within Ryan. Would he be able to face the investors, articulate his vision, and reclaim the direction of the company? Would he have the courage to challenge expectations woven into the fabric of their corporate structure? The echo of his commitment rang in his ears, but doubt whispered insidiously, what if their optimism was misplaced? Meanwhile, in the backdrop of their conversation, the door of the cafe swung open, a fresh breeze entering just as someone stepped inside, oblivious to the quiet storm brewing within Ryan. He cast a quick glance, and suddenly, a familiar face emerged, a figure that threatened to shatter the delicate balance of this moment. That it was Samantha, the lead investor, with her sharp gaze and icy demeanor, a testament to the realities that awaited him. The decision to confront her and his destiny had sparked, and Ryan felt the cold tendrils of dread tighten around him. Would this encounter shake the foundations of their newfound partnership, or push him to scale the heights of his aspirations? He steeled himself for the battle ahead. As Samantha approached, Ryan's pulse quickened, each beat echoing the gravity of the moment. She swept through the cafe as if commanding the very air around her, the tension palpable. Ryan could feel the weight of his ambitions hanging in the balance, teetering on the brink of collapse or breakthrough. "Stay calm," he whispered to himself, drawing deep breaths while a sense of urgency flared. Samantha's eyes darted around the cafe before landing squarely on their booth. "Ryan," she called, her voice crisp yet layered with an undertone of curiosity. She seemed to recognize Jenny beside him, a slight crease forming in her brow. "Nice to see you both." Ryan felt the air shift. He glanced at Jenny, whose eyes widened, reflecting her own apprehension. "We need to look composed," he thought, consciously relaxing his shoulders and adopting what he hoped was an air of confidence. Samantha slid into the booth across from them, all business but undeniably calculating. "Heard you two have been quite the dynamic duo lately," she said, leaning back, folding her arms in a manner that suggested both familiarity and predatory interest. "What's cooking?" Ryan's tongue felt heavy, a jumbled swirl of thoughts clattering in his mind. This was the pivotal juncture he had both anticipated and dreaded. Should he speak boldly, embodying the vision they had crafted, or should he temper his enthusiasm, fearing her skepticism? "Well, actually, we were discussing a proposal," he began, feeling Jenny's eyes bore into him with a mix of encouragement and trepidation. "What kind of proposal?" Samantha's tone shifted slightly, dripping with cautious interest. Ryan straightened his spine, biting back the initial urge to retreat into cautiousness, and laid out their ideas with growing clarity. "We want to initiate a pilot program focusing on employee well-being, encompassing mental health initiatives and building community bonds. Our belief is that it would improve overall productivity while fostering a more resilient workforce," he asserted, the corners of his mouth instinctively curving into a smile as he spoke about their vision. Samantha listened, interrupting occasionally with pointed questions. "And you believe this isn't just fluff? How do you intend to budget for such a program? What kind of data supports this?" Each inquiry brought with it Ryan's internal battle, doubt siphoning his confidence, yet he pushed through. "We're currently gathering testimonials from employees about their experiences with our current initiatives. If we can illustrate the direct correlation between mental health and productivity, it strengthens our case," he said, feeling the fire in his conviction stoke with each word. Samantha's expression hardened, clearly searching for cracks in his confidence. "And what if you don't find the data to back it up? You might invest precious resources into a program that fails to deliver." The comment struck deep, exposing roots of insecurity Ryan thought he had uprooted. "We adapt, we learn," he fired back, instinct pulling him to a place of determination as memories of boardroom criticisms surfaced. "If we earn their trust through transparency and authenticity, people will surprise you." There it was, the moment. The small victory of defying her challenges, yet the urgency in Ryan's chest remained, echoing the uncertainty of their precarious position. Would Samantha be swayed, or had he overextended himself in confronting such a formidable opponent? An uneasy silence enveloped them, thickening until Ryan could almost hear his own heartbeat. Samantha leaned in, intrigue laced with an edge. "Prove to me that the data exists. Prove to me that you're not just idealists chasing a dream. I need more than words right now." "This isn't just about idealism," Ryan responded, the weight of their vulnerabilities apparent in his voice. "It's about redefining success in a way that is sustainable for everyone involved." For the first time, he felt the tentative foundations of his confidence solidify against her piercing gaze. The struggle within him was far from over, yet he sensed a flicker of possibility. As she considered his words, the tension morphed, thick with unspoken challenges. Ryan could almost taste change on the air. Could this be the moment he had been waiting for, the catalyst that would transform him from merely a player in the game into a decisive force? But before he could fully process that thought, Jennifer discreetly nudged him, her wide eyes reflecting the darkness of doubt she desperately tried to suppress. "We need to be prepared for whatever comes next," she urged under her breath. Outside, the faint sounds of rushing traffic and distant laughter mingled with the weight of their conversation, contrasting sharply with the atmosphere pooling around their booth. Ryan steeled himself as Samantha's expression flickered something taut yet alluring. The battle was not over, and with each second, the stakes rose higher. "Let us see the data first, Ryan. I expect results." The finality in her voice left little room for misinterpretation, sending ripples of reality crashing through his momentary confidence. What awaited him now? A confrontation with numbers and truths that could shatter or solidify everything he had so ardently believed in. The question loomed in his mind: would he rise to the challenge or falter at this critical point in his journey? Ryan leaned back in the booth, the weight of Samantha's ultimatum pressuring him like a vice. He could almost hear the clock ticking down as he felt the intensity of the moment shift. He needed to prove that their proposal meant more than just idealism. Samantha had thrown down the gauntlet, not just challenging him content-wise but questioning his entire approach. Gather the data, he thought, his mind racing through potential avenues. He had always found comfort in numbers. They were tangible, a reality he could grasp when the abstract became overwhelming. But would he have enough time? Jenny was studying him, her expression caught somewhere between admiration and dread. The implications of their ambition now hovered like a specter, infringing on the possibilities they had drawn in their plans. We can't let her skepticism derail us, he reminded himself, searching for that inner fire he felt fizzing in his stomach just moments ago. Let us brainstorm tonight, he murmured to Jenny as soon as Samantha excused herself to take a call, seamlessly removing the tension as if she could cut the air with a knife. We can dive into the current initiatives, find any data that highlights productivity trends. Maybe more importantly, we can gather fresh testimonials. The employees will support what we want to achieve. Jenny nodded, the spark of resolved determination igniting in her eyes. We can leverage the feedback we send out next week about the current mental health programs. If we get right on surveys, we might have something to show by Friday. Her pragmatism invigorated him. Yet uncertainty gnawed at the back of his mind. What if the data fell short? What if the testimonials weren't enough? That doubt nestled deeper, curling around his resolve, squeezing tighter as he imagined the ramifications of failure. He had to confront it head-on. They faced an uphill battle, but perhaps it was time to expose not just their ideas but also their dedication and resilience. Returning home after parting ways with Jenny, Ryan sat down at his desk, the glow of his computer screen illuminating the shadows of the night. The flickering light of a blank document projected the enormity of what lay ahead. He wasn't merely crafting a proposal, he was piecing together a patchwork of lives affected by workplace culture, pain points that could transform into a cascade of inspiration if he articulated them effectively. In the stillness, he thought about the employees, about the silent struggles they might be enduring. The thought clashed against his internal fears. What if he poured his heart into this and was met with indifference from management? Could his aspirations survive the sting of rejection? With a surge of determination, he began typing. He drafted a letter for employees, introducing the concept of the pilot program and inviting them to share their experiences. There was honesty and vulnerability, and he aimed to create a safe space for their voices, blending qualitative and quantitative data to reflect their reality. 2 hours later, he leaned back, feeling the weight lighten. His eyes fell to the clock, ticking towards midnight, an hour he usually associated with surrender. But tonight was different. He would not back down. The first step was finding clarity amid chaos. Discovering hidden strengths. This was a chance to be an advocate, to redefine the narrative. As he prepared to finally crawl into bed, a sound caught his attention outside. A sudden crash, followed by muffled voices, stirred something deep within him. He peered through his window, instinctively leaning forward to catch a better view, and his heart raced. Just across the street, a small crowd had gathered, their faces painted with expressions that mirrored his own curiosity, concern, determination. In that moment, he felt the rush of something entirely unexpected: purpose. It sparked a question that sent a shiver down his spine. What if the noise outside, what if that was a sign? An intersection between the introverted journey he had been on and the chaos of the world beyond his window. The true challenge lay ahead. He would dive deeper, but how would he translate that fire into something tangible for those whose lives could truly change? Tomorrow would demand answers. And he could almost hear the energetic hum of change waiting for him just beyond that commotion. Ryan awoke the next morning with an urgency that stitched itself into the fabric of his thoughts. The previous night's chaos still tingled in his veins, igniting ideas for the day ahead. He flipped through his mental checklist of tasks, strategizing ways to maximize his limited time. Gathering data and testimonials was only the beginning. He needed to engage employees on a personal level. As he arrived at the office, he was greeted by the familiar hum of conversations and the clatter of keyboards. Yet, today felt different. He searched for faces, looking for those who might share their unfiltered truths with him. He approached a group gathered by the coffee machine, casually inquiring about their thoughts on workplace support. Would his questions lead to rich discussions or muted responses? How do the current initiatives help you? He probed, feeling the clarity of the inquiry strengthen his resolve. Eyes shifted, and he noticed a hesitance he hadn't anticipated. He waited, feeling the air tighten as he braced for the potential silence of indifference. Finally, a voice broke through. A young woman, Mia, whose confidence was hidden behind a veil of fatigue revealed through her eyes. Honestly, sometimes it feels like we're just checking boxes, not truly addressing issues. Ryan's heart raced. What do you mean? He urged, diving deeper. There it was, honesty laced with disappointment. He leaned closer, ready to absorb every word, every raw detail that could transform their proposal from a sterile document into a living, breathing discourse. Mia opened up about the pressure to perform, the fatigue from long hours, and the lack of open dialogue regarding mental health. His mind raced as he internalized her stories, realizing they were crucial insights that could make their proposal resonate. He felt a swell of both anxiety and determination. Her reality was a gift he hadn't anticipated, a spark for the compelling narrative he needed to build. Their conversation became a catalyst, rippling outward. Ryan organized casual sessions throughout the week, inviting employees to share experiences. Each revelation chipped away at his doubts and fears, illuminating the true challenges many faced behind closed doors. The testimonials linked together like puzzle pieces, painting a picture that was both shocking and heartbreaking yet hopeful. But what he didn't know about himself was how powerful these voices could be, he reflected, his confidence slowly solidifying. As they gathered an assembly of stories, he began crafting an introduction to the proposal, framing it with the narratives he had collected. The collaborative nature of this approach felt revolutionary. It wasn't just about offering solutions, it was about weaving the employee's struggles into the fabric of change. Each day, he felt more capable, more aligned with his purpose. But this newfound clarity accompanied a shadow of doubt, the fear that management would dismiss these testimonials as anecdotal fluff. Would they recognize the potential for genuine connection? Would they understand the urgency behind it? That afternoon, Ryan met with Jenny in their small conference room, where the fluorescent lights buzzed nervously above them. He presented the stories they had gathered, watching Jenny's eyes light up with each narrative. This will change everything, she asserted, yet her voice trembled slightly. Yes, but we need a strategy for presentation, he replied. The darker specter of uncertainty backlit his eagerness. How can we ensure that these voices are not lost in the shuffle? Their collaboration became a chess match, a dance of ideas and strategies. But time was short, and Samantha was still looming over them like an uncontrollable storm. Pressure mounted as the deadline approached, escalating his sense of urgency. As they finalized their presentation, Ryan glanced out the conference room window, transfixed by the atmosphere outside. The chaos was now burgeoning into something far more epic than the mere crash of the previous night. Could the unrest they witnessed be a reflection of the very dissatisfaction simmering among their colleagues? Contemplating the external climate revitalized a sense of responsibility within him. He understood now that the challenge transcended his fear of rejection, it was about harnessing the collective voices that had been previously silenced. As they completed their preparations and closed their laptops, a sudden realization engulfed him. Are we ready for the reaction this proposal might evoke? He asked, dread creeping in once more. It was an uncharted territory layered with potential consequences he had yet to comprehend. The next day loomed ahead, the opportunity to share their findings and advocate for change, but good intentions could only take them so far. Just as he felt a surge of confidence, a chilling thought settled within: what if they were wrong about management's receptivity? With determination both rising and wavering, Ryan found himself at a pivotal junction. Uncertainty thrummed through him, asking, was he prepared for the fallout that could very well ensue? As his pulse quickened, he realized the time had truly come to face the hearts and minds of those in authority. Ryan paced the floor of the conference room, the hands of the clock creeping toward the meeting time like a relentless tide. The air was thick with anticipation, charged with anxiety that seeped from the walls and mingled with his own. He could almost taste the fear brewing within him. Today wasn't just about presenting ideas, it was the moment where everything would either ignite into meaningful change or fizzle into disappointment. Jenny sat opposite him, fiddling with her notebook, her focus shifting from the page to Ryan as he practiced his pitch one last time in his mind. We need to make them feel this, he murmured aloud, trying to convince both her and himself. The stories were the heart of the proposal, but would they resonate with management? Would they see past the stats and figures to understand the real human experiences that lay beneath? As the clock struck 10, a soft knock on the door interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Ryan's breath quickened, and Jenny instantly straightened, both of them exchanging nervous glances. The meeting attendees trickled in, Samantha, the stern-faced HR director, along with several other department heads. They settled in, their expressions a blend of skepticism and detached professionalism that made Ryan's chest tighten. Once the last speaker was seated, Ryan glanced fleetingly at Jenny, finding a flicker of encouragement in her gaze. "All right, let us get started," Sam commanded, cutting through the tension. With a forced smile, Ryan rose, steeling himself for the moment he had been gearing up for. He launched into the introduction, recounting the gathered testimonials, allowing his passion to infuse his words. As he shared Mia's story, he felt an unexpected surge of adrenaline. He waved his hands, illustrating the struggles faced by employees, and his voice rose with each emotional peak, yet as he spoke, he noticed Samantha's face morph into an expression that bordered on disbelief. Her brow furrowed slightly, and he couldn't help but read between the lines. There it was, the entrenched skepticism, a wall he needed to break through if he was to succeed. Ryan pressed forward, emphasizing the urgency of understanding employee concerns. "This isn't just data, it's a reality check," he asserted, tapping into the emotional weight of their narratives. "To genuinely support our team, we need to recognize the psychological toll this environment has taken. We can't afford to overlook that." The room absorbed his words, but he could feel the resistance in the air. When he finished, silence hung heavy before Samantha broke it. "Ryan, while we appreciate the insights, anecdotal evidence alone doesn't become actionable strategy," she countered bluntly, her tone devoid of warmth. The remark felt like a punch to the gut. Ryan's mind raced. How could he defend the emotional toll of the workplace against the cold, hard logic of management? "I understand, but these aren't just stories, they're reflections of what's happening within our walls. How can we move forward if we don't acknowledge these issues?" "I see your passion," she replied curtly. "But we need solutions, not just problems laid bare before us." Her dismissive tone sparked a fire in Ryan, igniting the urge to push back. He could feel the resolve building within, shaking off the distractions of doubt. "We need a cultural shift," he declared, leaning in, his voice firm but measured. "The health of this company begins with how we support our employees. If they feel lost, our productivity will plummet regardless of how many initiatives we put forth on paper." This time, there were audible shifts around the table. A hum of agreement from some, a flicker of doubt from others. He pressed on, rallying his confidence like a shield. Yet, before he could analyze the shift, Samantha spoke again, this time with a calculating edge. "Fine, Ryan. If we allow this plan to proceed, what happens next? How will you measure success?" Her question hung in the air, an opening and a challenge, simultaneously. Ryan's heart raced. This was the crux. Compiling stories meant nothing without clarity on impact. He had to answer that question, and soon. As he battled his internal doubts, he glanced at Jenny, who nodded in encouragement. He could feel the moment weighing down on him. It was now or never. Was he ready to articulate how a cultural shift could achieve meaningful changes beyond mere anecdotal tales? In a flash, thoughts crystallized. Success looks like a company with open dialogues, supportive frameworks, and ultimately a happier, healthier workforce. We can track engagement metrics, turnover rates, productivity levels, but more importantly, we'll feel it in the atmosphere of this place," he stated, finding a rhythm of conviction. Samantha arched an eyebrow, intrigued but guarded. "It begins with more than numbers, Ryan. It begins with trust. Are you prepared to build that?" His heartbeat quickened, realization dawning as he faced the expansive territory ahead. Trust would demand vulnerability on his part, a willingness to expose his own struggles to foster genuine connection. "That's precisely what I aim to do," he declared, the fire of determination sparking anew. "I want to foster that trust, and I'm ready to engage openly." If we move forward with this proposal, I'll stand with our employees, sharing not just their stories but mine." A palpable tension filled the room. Ryan sensed the scales tipping, but doubt lingered. Could he truly be okay with exposing himself in a way he had never dared before? With the weight of the opportunity upon him, Ryan realized this crossroads was only the beginning. Internal battles shimmered beneath the surface, urging him to decide whether he could navigate the vulnerability required for change. As Samantha surveyed him, he could see her contemplating his declaration, weighing the price of acceptance. But as the meeting pressed forward, one question lingered in his mind: would he manage to strike a balance between his own truth and the needs of those too often ignored? The answer felt elusive, yet exhilarating. The cultivation of a robust workplace culture was beckoning him closer, a path lined with both peril and promise, demanding nothing less than his full commitment. The days that followed the presentation were both tense and exhilarating for Ryan Caldwell. The proposal had been met with a mixture of skepticism and cautious interest from management, particularly Samantha. Yet, there was a palpable shift in the office environment as discussions around employee well-being became more frequent. Gone were the days when metrics ruled supreme without consideration for the human behind each number. Ryan recognized that this change was simply the beginning. Empowered by the feedback he received, he devoted himself to expanding their pilot program. He laid out a structured approach, partnering with Jenny to ensure their vision resonated with more than just a handful of employees. Together, they crafted initiatives aimed at building mental health support systems, mentoring programs, and workshops focused on tackling workplace stressors. With every meeting, Ryan sharpened his ability to articulate the link between a flourishing corporate culture and individual well-being. As he shared stories during presentations, not only from their gathered testimonials but from his own experiences, he noticed a remarkable transformation in both himself and his colleagues. Rather than shying away from vulnerability, Ryan leaned into it, learning that authenticity fostered deeper connections and trust among his peers. As the implementation phase unfolded, Ryan found himself witnessing the tangible impacts of their shared vision. Productivity numbers soared, teams engaged more openly, and morale shifted positively. Employees, empowered by initiatives that acknowledged their struggles, began to share their stories willingly, creating an atmosphere of belonging. The culmination of their effort arrived a few weeks later when management requested a company-wide review to evaluate their initiative's effectiveness. The anticipation that filled the conference room was palpable as Ryan prepared to present not only the quantitative results but the heartfelt testimonials that painted a vibrant picture of employee triumphs and challenges. As he stood before his colleagues, his hands steady and his voice resonant, he began, "What you're about to hear is about more than just numbers. It's about transformation, a journey we've embarked on together." The resonance of his words ignited emotions in the room. For every statistic he shared, an employee stood to relate their personal experience: how a simple lunch and learn had alleviated their mental load, or how access to mental health support had catalyzed their healing process. The faces around him reflected understanding and solidarity. The moment that solidified his confidence and marked a seismic shift in his journey arrived when he concluded with an invitation to leadership: "Let us continue to foster this relationship. Let us commit to evolving our company culture in a way that values not just productivity but authentic human connection. Together, we truly can redefine success." After the presentation concluded, applause filled the room, echoing against the walls. Ryan marveled at the acknowledgement. He felt a sense of triumph washing over him unlike any he had experienced in the past. Samantha approached him afterward, a newfound warmth radiating from her demeanor. "Ryan, I didn't expect such results. You've proven that these initiatives can yield gains, both quantitatively and qualitatively. Well done." The validation ignited a new flame within him. Ryan could hardly believe that his vision, once fuzzily conceived amid uncertainty, had become a concrete reality. He relished each moment of recognition, but what truly mattered was the evolution of not only the company but his personal growth. Reflecting on his journey, Ryan understood that real success encompassed more than just financial achievement. He had cultivated an environment where voices could be heard, the very essence of connection and humanity. He had ventured into discomfort, embraced vulnerability, and emerged with solid confidence and a sense of purpose that extended beyond spreadsheets. As the weeks rolled forward into a newly anchored culture at work, Ryan felt a clear shift within himself. He had demonstrated resilience and vision and conquered unspoken fears. His accomplishments resonated deeply, fostering a belief in himself that had once seemed unattainable. He stood now, not only as a successful entrepreneur but as a leader who had learned the invaluable lesson of balance, the importance of nurturing ambition while championing the individuals who fueled it. If you resonate with Ryan's journey of transformation and growth, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to leave a like to feed the algorithm, helping more incredible stories reach those who need them. Comment below your thoughts on Ryan's evolution, and share your own takeaways. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are striving to overcome personal challenges. Let us spread the motivation together.